My name is Bill Thomas. I'm a writer, consulting producer, and now podcaster. I am now trying to use my experience as the brother of a murder victim to help other victims of violent crime. I'm working on a book on the unsolved Colonial Parkway Murders, and I'm the co-administrator of the Colonial Parkway Murders Facebook group together with Kristin Dilley.
My name is Kristin Dilley. I'm a writer, a researcher, a teacher, and a victims advocate, as well as the social media manager and co-administrator for the Colonial Parkway Murders Facebook page with my partner in crime, Bill Thomas. Welcome to Mind Over Murder. I'm Kristin Dilley.
And I'm Bill Thomas.
And we're joined today by Judy Knobling here to talk to us about David Knobling. Judy, thank you so much for joining us on Mind Over Murder.
You're welcome, Chris. Nice being here.
So, Judy, what are some of the words that you would use to describe David as a person?
David was a little awkward. He was like a 15-year-old in a 6-foot body because he was so childlike at times. He was very protective. He was kind, gentle. He was also a people pleaser. He wanted everybody to get along. Very considerate. Yeah, that pretty much describes him, a very gentle giant.
We've seen a lot of pictures of David over the years, and we see this freckle-faced, cute kid who looks a little mischievous, perhaps, then grow up to be this really handsome young guy.
Yeah.
Did he realize that he wasn't the awkward kid anymore and that he was, particularly you see him in his military uniform, and did he understand that?
I think he finally did when he was in his military uniform and everything after that. But before then, no, he was very awkward and very immature for his age. He really was. But that's because he's very protective. I mean, he was very protective. I had David when I was 16, and it was just him and me for a long time because I got divorced right away. So it was him and me for a long time there. So.
And so when you say protective, you mean of you in particular?
Of me, of his brother, of anybody. He was a very protective type. He would look out for anybody. He was big. He thought he was the big, strong, strapping dude. You know what I mean? When actually he was skinny as a runt,
Oh, it's funny. The pictures are kind of deceptive because he looks very broad-shouldered.
Yeah, maybe.
It might be the suit.
His waist was about a 21.
For our listeners, give us a little context about your family and David's place in it. So, what was his birth order in the family? Who did he relate to the best? That sort of thing. Well,
David took family very seriously. He was the oldest grandchild, okay? The first grandchild born, and he took that very seriously. I can remember he tried to look out for everybody else. I remember one time, his last Easter, at my parents', and the kids then were about 12, 13, most of them, okay? And he's like the 18, 19-year-old, right? So so he's saying, okay, well, let's have an Easter egg hunt. And they're all going, we're too old for that. He's, oh, no. Everybody get inside. We're having an Easter egg hunt, And of course, he goes out there and hides Easter eggs, and all these, kids come out there, and everybody had a blast, of course. That was him, though, right there. He wanted to be, he was a people person. He liked to be around people and wanted everybody to have fun, everybody to like him.
And it sounds like he was the Easter egg hunt organizer in that example.
Oh, he was. Oh, yes, he was. Yeah, he had to be in charge.
Now, was that part of the military training that he'd had, or was that just his nature?
I think that was just his nature. I think it was. I mean, he didn't care for military school when he first went. I mean, he was like 13, 14 years old, I think, when he went to military school up in Chatham at Hargrave Military Academy. And it was really difficult. It was really difficult for him at first. He hated it. He was complaining, wanted to come home. He had to march for hours in the rain. I shudder to think what he did to deserve that. And then he finally got used to it a little bit. My brother lived up there, and his family would come get him for weekends, and that helped out a lot. So then when he come back here, I couldn't afford it that first year. But then when he come back, that summer, he decided he wanted to go to military school. So we enrolled him at Frederick Military Academy in Portsmouth. So that was closer and, less expensive. So Michael and I could run over every Friday afternoon and pick him up and then take him back every Sunday. It was really good then. Life was really good then. That was a great time. But he and Michael developed a close bond.
Had they
but
been...
unfortunately, the school closed down, though.
What was the idea of the military school? Did you feel that he needed that level of discipline or some focus?
Well, you see, his stepdad, Carl, and I separated when he was 11, and Michael was 7. Okay? I didn't realize how devastating that would be for the boys, and it was. And Carl was very upset with me at the time, and he refused to visit with the boys. Okay? And that just hurt them, and they both just acted out. And here I am with 2 boys at home, and I'm trying to go to work, and I'm getting calls of, busted windows and this and that, and I couldn't work and worry about them. So something had to be done, and I couldn't send them to Carl, so I enrolled David in military school.
In retrospect,
it seemed to work at the time.
It did seem to work at the time. It was helpful.
Yeah. But he did end up, when he came back home then, he surprised me by getting his GED. He didn't want to go back to public school, so he got his GED because he knew how much I valued education. So I went out and immediately got him a high school ring. He was just tickled to death with that, which he promptly gave to a girlfriend and lost. So then when it was found after his death, though, it ended up being turned over to Carl. So I haven't seen it.
So what were some of David's hopes and dreams and future plans at the time of his death? What was he eventually hoping to do long term?
I honestly don't know. I really don't know. First of all, his Tara was pregnant at the time, so he was kind of looking forward to being a father.
Mm-hmm.
But he worked at the time at the water purification plant, selling water purification systems. And he had just got his first paycheck that week when he died, and he was really good at that. He was a talker. He can talk his way pretty much into anything.
Yes.
I honestly don't know what would have happened. I really don't know. I'm sure he would have been successful because he was hard-headed and determined. I can remember when he went to, when he wanted to get a truck after he got his driver's license. And I told him that, I would co-sign for him and I'd put the down payment down, right? So off we go to the store. And he wanted a brand new truck. I said, no, you're not getting a brand new truck. Blah, blah, blah. We'll come back another day. And then I think the next day he comes driving up in this truck that we had looked at that I told him he couldn't have. He says, I financed it. Okay. So, yeah, he could manage to do that. I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. Anyway, so after he died, I ended up having to pay for the truck.
Oh, that's right. Well,
yeah.
some people, his brother and other friends had said that he was kind of almost like a super salesman, though. In other words, he connected with people. I don't know if it was Michael or somebody else, his brother, who said he was kind of one of those ice cubes to Eskimos kind of salesman that, he could have sold anyone anything because he had that charm.
He did. He really did. Of course, I was kind of strict on him. I can remember one time I got a call from Ford Motor Credit saying they hadn't received his payment on that truck. So I go over to his place in the middle of the night because I had a key. After all, I co-signed, parked my car, right?
That's right.
Truck, rather. So I go over and I move his truck so he couldn't find it. So then I call him and tell him, if you can't make the payments, then you can't get the truck. Anyway.
A little lesson in responsibility.
Exactly. So it turned out the check was in the mail and it just didn't get there. But anyway, that didn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
He was very careful about making the payments and ahead of time.
So what was David's relationship like with Tara? You mentioned her previously. We know she was pregnant at the time of his death. What were their plans? Were you aware of?
Well, they had dated for a couple of years. She lived with her grandparents, and David was over there all the time. He thought a lot of her grandparents, and they felt the same way about him up until she got pregnant anyway. And, of course, he died before the baby was born. I think they were kind of breaking up. I'm not sure. They were not on the best of terms at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to decide if he should marry or not marry, or, it wasn't any issue about taking care of the baby. He was looking forward to the baby. But, I don't know what would have happened with that relationship. Because he really wasn't quite sure that the baby was his at the time, but, I don't know.
Tara seems to have a different perception. Of course, she's looking back on things more than 30 years later as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I visited in the hospital when the baby was born, and then I kept up the relationship with her. And
just for clarification for our listeners, in this next section, we are talking about David and Tara's daughter, Ashley.
Until she got married and moved away to Texas, really. And then she got divorced after 5 or 6 years and come back here. And she didn't have custody of the boys. She had 2 boys by then. But I had gone to visit her down there, and I realized that, her life was miserable. She was working as a waitress or something, and she was just paying child support. That was all she did. She was renting a room. She had a crummy job and no car, no training, no family in Texas. So I convinced her to come back to Virginia and go to school, which she did. She come back. She became a paralegal and stayed here for several years. And then she missed the boys. They needed her, and so she moved back there, and that's where she is now. So I don't get to see her but a couple of times a year, and the boys maybe once a year. So really miss them. No, she moved back to Texas about a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's possible she might have been up in Virginia when we were shooting the Lover's Lane.
Oh, yeah, she was here then, yeah.
Okay, got it. So she's back in Texas now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And
yeah,
then
she was up here, and she went to school. She worked at the law firm where I worked for 5, 6 years. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Are you still with that law firm?
No, I retired. I retired about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But she was still there when I left. We're talking about Ashley, Tara's daughter. Ashley would not have anything to do with her mother.
Mm-hmm.
I have never talked to Tara at all since any of this. Maybe one time, but no. Tara was a drug addict, okay? That's why Ashley was with her grandmother on her mother's side.
Got it. Okay, sorry for the confusion.
When all this happened. So, and I've tried to convince Ashley to talk to her mother,
mm-hmm.
but she won't. She will not forgive her for the way she treated her. It was very difficult for her. And
Ashley, we were referencing a few minutes ago, it's Ashley that's been back and forth between Texas and Virginia.
Yes, and she has 2 sons.
How did David know Robin Edwards and her family?
Well, he really didn't. Okay, so he had his own apartment. I convinced him to move in with me because I was having financial problems, and it wasn't all great for him either. So he moved in. We moved back home. And he was hanging around the house one night when their cousin, Jason, who is more Michael's age, okay, was spending the night. And then he had been talking to a girl that he knew who was Robin, who had been in some kind of halfway house or something like that. And she had just gotten back home again. And she wanted to go out. I think they wanted to go to the movies or something. So David agreed to take them all out.
You're listening to Mind Over Murder. We'll be right back.
Who wants some brand new Mind Over Murder merchandise? You do, of course. And our friends at TeePublic have hooked us up with some great merchandise.
There are Mind Over Murder t-shirts available in about 6 different weights. Female, male, soft, not so soft, something that looks like your old gym shirt. All of the above.
And in any color that you want as well. The possibilities are limitless.
And then we have tank tops, crew neck sweatshirts, which probably won't be big in July, but might be more popular, say, in October.
Better for those cooler months.
And also for cooler months, long sleeve t-shirts, baseball t-shirts, and you get to configure the color of the shirt and the color of your sleeves. You could do your entire women's softball team in Mind Over Murder t-shirts, baseball
I like
style.
that idea. We've also got mugs available, magnets, stickers, laptop cases, phone cases, and tote bags. I'm going to order a couple of tote bags. I can take one every day of the week to school.
We've got masks, which I hope we won't be wearing soon.
Right?
And wall art, notebooks, a pillow. I don't know if I need a Mind Over Murder pillow, but somebody else might love it.
Perfect for your living room.
And then for the younger crime fighters, we have kids' t-shirts, kids' hoodies, kids' long sleeve t-shirts in a variety of colors. All of these things can be configured just about in any color you can imagine. And then my favorite, the Mind Over Murder onesie for the smallest crime fighters among us.
So if you're interested in any of this great merchandise, take a look at the website at tpublic.com and type in Mind Over Murder Podcast. You can also look for links on our social media pages and in our show notes.
We're back here at Mind Over Murder.
Anyway, they go out, Jason, Michael, David, and they come back in just a little while and tell me the movie sold out. And David wants to know if he should go back to her house and tell her parents that, the movie sold out. We want to go to the arcade and play some video games. And I said, no, I don't think so, hon. Just get her back when she's supposed to be on time. I think that would be fine. And so off they go again. And then later on, they come back. They had already dropped her off and everything. We're sitting around eating pizza. Anyway, so David decides he's going out again. I mean, it was kind of late, 11:30 or so, but he's 20 years old. I don't tell him whatever. So he goes. And so that was it. I did not hear from him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So we went on to bed. Next morning was Sunday, so we slept in. And I didn't think it unusual that he wasn't there because lots of times he's a get-up-and-go kind of person, so I figured maybe he got up and he's gone on his way wherever. But then by the afternoon, I hadn't heard from him. By dinner time, I hadn't heard from him. That's when I started getting worried and started calling all around everywhere. And I couldn't nobody had ever seen him, heard from him, or anything. I finally called the police. I don't know if it was then or the next day or whatever. There was no problem to them. There was, it hadn't been enough time. He's not a missing person. He's an adult. Couldn't do anything about it,
And would that have been 24 or more hours since you had seen him by that point when you were talking with the police?
It had been 24, but at that time, I think it had to be at least 48.
Mm-hmm. And he was a grown man from the...
And he was a grown man, yeah.
Police.
Well, even when they found his truck over at Ragged Island, they said it doesn't look like there's been foul play, and he's an adult. There's still no problem.
Even with the clothes in the cab of the truck, they didn't see a problem?
Nope, they didn't see a problem. Nope.
Did they offer any thoughts as to why they thought,
No.
From everything we've heard from Michael, David's brother, that Ford Ranger pickup was his pride and joy.
Oh, yeah, that was definitely his baby. Oh,
and
yeah. He would not have left it like that. He would not have left it. I mean, we all knew he would not have left his truck unattended.
And Michael's made the point as well that David was in the habit of always parking his truck nose out. It was
he always backed up.
It was a thing, always backed into the space, which I know is kind of a car guy, truck guy thing. And yet here the truck was pulled nose in to the space, unlocked.
Yeah. Unlocked. Mm-hmm.
With the keys in the ignition, if we understand correctly.
I think so, yeah.
And
his wallet up on the dashboard, I think.
Law enforcement didn't seem to think that all those little things were unusual?
No. Nope. They just said, well, maybe he was in a hurry to get somewhere, and there's no broken windows, and there's no drag marks or anything. There's no blood anywhere. Everything's fine. So it took harassing them for several days, or maybe it took 48 hours for him to be missing. I don't know what it was, but finally they took us seriously. But by then they had insisted that we move the truck. So I had the truck towed over. I asked Carl if he'd keep it at his place,
right?
Because I really didn't. I said, look, something's wrong, and I really don't want the reminder at my house constantly. So anyway, they took it over there, and it seems that eventually they come over there to take fingerprints or something, but by then the truck has already been gone through. They ended up...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think they ended up dropping the fingerprints or something. Maybe, I don't know if they dropped them or lost them or what, but anyway.
We've heard a story that fingerprint cards were dropped in the driveway.
Right. I think that's what Carl told us.
David's dad, Carl, did agree to take the truck. Did they tow it to Carl's house, or did they drive it?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember. I think they towed it, but I don't remember.
No, we're talking, when we say they regarding law enforcement, what agency are you dealing with? Do you recall?
No.
Was this Isle of Wight Sheriff's Department?
I would think it would be Isle of Wight. I think it was Isle of Wight.
And you were living in Newport News at the time, correct?
I was living in Hampton.
Hampton, okay. So you were not dealing with Hampton PD or any agencies on that side of the river. You were dealing with Isle of Wight on the far side of the James River.
Right, because that's where the truck was, yeah.
Am I reading into things? It sounds like you had some difficulty having Isle of Wight take things seriously.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And were any other agencies involved at that point?
Not that I know of. I mean, I don't even remember talking to them after I talked to them that first time. I mean, my dad and I went back up there several times before the body was found. Carl was up there. I think we had just gotten home one time when they found the body, you know. And I saw it on television. I mean, that's how I knew my son was dead.
Do you mind?
It was on the news.
Do you mind telling us how that happened?
I don't know how that happened. I mean, I was...
Well, from your point of view, though. In other words, you're at home watching television.
Right.
And did they say that they had a break in that case, or did they just, blurt it out over the television news?
No, this was just the news, okay? This was just the news. And actually, I do remember being over there one time, though, when David and I were over there when we realized that the shoes in the truck belonged to Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Michael recognized them as, I don't know if they had writing on them or bedazzled or something like that. But
there were doodles on them, like drawings.
Yeah, right. That was when I called his dad then and told him that he was missing and all that kind of stuff. So I had called my boss and told him I wouldn't be in, and he came over and picked me up, and we went over there, and he walked through it. But anyway, I went back. He wanted me to go back to work. So I went back to work for a couple of hours. And who can concentrate? Do you know what I mean? So
really?
I left again.
Sure.
Yeah. So we went back over there. We just kept hanging back over there. So anyway, so the police did ask that we move his truck, and I asked Carl to keep it at his place. And I don't remember talking to the police hardly at all. I'm sure I must have, but I was totally in shock after I heard he was dead. And it was on the news is where I heard it. They were showing a body bag being hauled off.
And did they actually use David and Robin's names?
No, not then, I don't think.
Okay.
Not immediately. They were just, But of course, I knew it. And it showed a picture of my dad there. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And this is just a reminder for our listeners. This is before cell phones. So
this is definitely before cell phones. Yeah.
It must have been difficult to even get updates in terms of what was going on in the 3-day search, because they're out there looking in the Ragged Island area, which is very spread out and swampy with paths and that sort of thing, and then looking along the water's edge. So it must have been difficult for you to try to just follow along with whatever was going on.
It was. It was difficult to just sit home and try to wait to hear something. So I would go out there for a while, and then I'd come back home, and then I'd go out there again. It was horrible.
So was Ragged Island a place that David frequented, or was it a place that he would not have had any occasion to be at?
I really don't know. I didn't even know about the place, and I can't imagine him knowing about the place. I don't think it was a place he frequented, but maybe. I really don't know.
Talking to Robin's family, they said they had no familiarity with the place either. It was on the far side of the river and not a place that they recall ever going, and they didn't think that Robin had ever been there either.
I know. It's kind of weird. I mean, as far as I could figure, I don't know why she wanted him to pick her up later. I don't know why they were meeting. That was just kind of strange. Although I will admit, I did find a roach in his ashtray. So they had been smoking marijuana, I think. But, of course, I took it before the cops got there.
Did you ever discuss it with the police?
I don't think so. I don't know that they ever asked. Or, like I said, I don't remember talking to them. I think they pretty much talked to Carl. I don't think I talked to him.
And have you and Carl ever talked much about this in the years since?
No. Mm-mm. No, Carl just kind of took over being our family all of a sudden, even though, he wasn't even in David's family before then, which, after we separated, he decided not to visit anymore. So, he was kind of out of it. I called him in when David was missing. That's the only time. Up until then, I think he went to Christmas parties at his dad's house, and that might have been it.
It does sound like Carl was trying to help in some way, in his own way.
Yes, he was. He was.
In searching, and I know that Carl tells a story about pushing past some of the investigators who didn't want to allow him to search the water's edge.
Yeah, I'm sure he would do that.
Well, that sounds consistent with his personality, what little I know of him.
Yes. He has a persistent personality.
A man of strong opinions, I think, is probably fair. Would you agree?
I will. But it was, this whole thing was really difficult. There was a lot of publicity and stuff right after this, and Carl and his new wife taking over, and I couldn't handle it. I tried to commit suicide.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Judy.
But that was about 6 months afterwards.
Do you feel like that was all related to what was going on with losing David?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep. Yes, and I was such a horrible mom at that time with Michael. He ended up turning to drugs. I was in the hospital, and then he was on drugs for years.
So sorry. Now, we've gotten to know Michael a bit in the last couple of years, and he actually is an amazing young man.
He really is. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Between I finally got my stuff together, though, and then when he was on drugs, I realized that, I've got him to deal with now.
Mm-hmm.
So it was me and him against the world, and together with drug court, that really saved his life. Then he came through it, on the other side,
mm-hmm.
and he could not be more perfect. And, he really could not be. He appreciates everything he's got. He met his current wife right after he got off the drugs and all that. And I think she saved him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
She actually saved him. And he didn't go back to drugs then. But I don't think he ever would have been on them if it wasn't for David's murder. He was always a good student, well-behaved, Now he's got 2 stepdaughters that he considers his own.
Yes.
I've never seen such a happy family.
Yeah.
And he has taken over David's role of taking care of everybody, his grandmother, me, his cousins. Anybody got car trouble, call on Michael. Anybody need a place to stay, call on Michael.
Right.
So
well,
he kind of took that over for David.
All of us who've gotten to know him in the last few years, and of course, he's a grown man now, we're incredibly impressed with him. And I remember, being there with the television crews twice when we shot interviews with Michael, and he impressed everyone. And he and Tonda were absolutely lovely and kind and gracious. And he's a very thoughtful guy.
He really is.
You're listening to Mind Over Murder. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsors. One of the most frequent questions we're asked here at Mind Over Murder is, how can I help?
Thanks to Othram, a leading forensic DNA testing lab for law enforcement, you can get involved and help solve real cases.
If you have tested at a consumer genetics company, you can contribute your data to DNAsolves.com. The process is easy and confidential. Just 2 simple steps. Your DNA might be the missing piece that helps solve the identity of an unknown person.
Then Mind Over Murder will highlight cases Othram is working on to seek your crowdfunding support for DNA testing to help solve these cold cases.
Upload your DNA profile to DNAsolves.com. It's easy, free, and confidential.
Then join Mind Over Murder as we help families find answers with Othram and DNAsolves.com.
We're back here at Mind Over Murder.
Oh my gosh, did he tell you the story about going out on to a party one night and seeing David's picture up in someone's house?
No.
No.
What do you
Yes.
know? What do you know about this?
Listen, yes. So he went to a party one night, and they stopped by a friend of a friend, and there we are, and he saw his brother's picture up there, and he asked, "Why do you have this?" And he says, "It's my brother." And he says, "No, that's my brother. What are you talking about?" And it turns out that was David's stepbrother. David had gone and, unbeknownst to me or Michael, looked up his biological father and had developed a relationship with them. He used to visit them all the time.
Oh, my gosh.
I didn't know that. I didn't even know that until after he passed.
Oh, how interesting. And so
I know. Like I said, he was a people person. He liked to have friends. He wanted to be around people, and I guess, he kind of missed having a dad. Maybe that got him interested in it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But,
did he have contact with his biological father?
yes, he did.
And then met his brother as well.
His stepbrothers, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Wow.
Right.
No, we'd never heard that. And so Michael's at this party, and he realizes that he's actually related to this young guy as well, is he not?
No, he wouldn't be, because Michael is Carl's son, but David was Justin's son.
Got it.
Okay.
Right. So no direct blood relationship, but a family relationship.
Right.
One of the things we're curious about, Judy, is do you recall when the Virginia State Police became involved in the case?
No, a long time after David died.
Do you think, we're just asking you to guess, but remember, your educated guess is better than anybody else's. Are we talking about months or perhaps years after David died that the Virginia State Police got involved?
I would think it would be closer to years.
And do you know, we've been told, but I'm curious if anyone ever told you as a family member, as a mother, why the Virginia State Police were getting involved at that point?
No, actually. Other than, was it a state park or something? I think that was what we were told. But
that answer has come up recently, which was new to Kristin and me. What we've been told for years, and I'm not saying this is 100% accurate, but we've been told that Isle of Wight was a very small sheriff's department, bigger now than 30 years ago, but they didn't have the resources, supposedly, to investigate a case of this type.
I think maybe that is another, I think that maybe that is another reason why, but also because it was a state park. I mean, that's just, I don't know, kind of weird.
Sense.
And did investigators reach out to you at any point with updates or questions?
Once or twice. I know I have a phone number, and I called a couple of months ago to the state police, and they're very nice. They just, we're still following leads, and we're doing this DNA whatever, and we'll get back to you, and then I don't hear back.
Did they say specifically what they were doing with DNA?
They did, but I don't remember.
Okay.
And would this have been?
I mean, what I was told a while back is they have a very small DNA sample, and they really can't do much with it. Okay, that's kind of what I've been told. And until they find something to try to match it with, they're kind of stuck.
But they did say that they are still actively investigating the case. Like they said that they're working on leads?
Yes, they did. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you recall if this was investigator Dustin Weymouth German or a different investigator?
No, that was him.
And
that was just a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And did he initiate the call, or did you? Do you remember?
No, I did.
If you call, will they return your call?
Probably. I usually text him, but yes.
So when you text him, how does he reply then?
He replies by text.
Mm-hmm. If there were new scientific opportunities, which we're aware of, to test this DNA using much more advanced search technology, is that something that you would be interested in and would support?
Oh, yes, definitely. As a matter of fact, I think that's what he said at the time, that there's something new that they were going to try.
Well, we're pushing the FBI on Cathy Thomas and Rebecca Dowski's case to use more advanced forensics. And I am aware of the fact that there is a small sample available from David and Robin's case, which is, as I understand it, it's not in great shape. It's 30 plus years old, and they were exposed to water and perhaps seawater.
Right.
And I believe, and I'm trying to be fair to law enforcement here, I believe they've conducted tests over the years, but some of those tests consumed the DNA so that there's not very much left. One of our questions is we think they should be using this new, what they call full genome sequencing DNA testing, which uses dramatically less of the sample, and it's much more precise than ever before. And all of these developments are in the last 5 years, so this obviously wasn't available.
I really think that's what he mentioned.
Okay. That's good news then.
I really think that's what he mentioned.
Let me ask a question, though. Let's say that we knew we only had a very small amount of DNA left. We knew we only had one shot, if you know what I mean, left with the DNA that we had. Would you be okay if we took a final shot with whatever DNA was left using the most advanced testing available? But it might mean that we have nothing left at the end of the process. I'm just asking you a theoretical here. Would you support that?
I think we ought to use the best that we've got. Yes, even if we have to use it all, because heck, it's going to be 34 years coming up. So what difference does it make at this point?
Yeah.
What's been your overall view of the way the case has been handled by Isle of Wight and Virginia State Police?
Well, naturally, I feel like they dropped the bucket on the very initial stages. You know what I mean? I mean, they wouldn't even consider that I knew what I was talking about, that he was missing, and there was no reason for it. I don't know.
Well, especially,
I don't know what else they could have done.
Well, especially given your close relationship and the fact that, you know, there were so many things that were wrong about that, the way the truck was found and the circumstances that were just so not what David was all about as we understand it.
I know, and they just would not listen to us. I mean, until a body pretty much was found, they weren't interested.
I know that Michael was very insistent. He just said there is no way my brother would have left the truck.
I know.
With the keys in it, and he said it just. And he said, you know, we'd worked on that truck in the garage and the driveway at the house, and he said we'd hardwired the radio so we could play the tunes when we were doing stuff at the beach and that sort of thing. And he said, you know, you didn't need to have the key in the accessory position to play the stereo. And he said
that's right, because the police kept telling us, well, maybe he had the stereo on, and Michael was explaining to him that he didn't need to do that. You know.
And this was all something that the two brothers shared. And it's funny, we know Michael, he's a total car guy to this day.
Oh, my God, yes. Total.
But he remembered all of those details about the Ford Ranger truck and the things they'd done to fix it up. And he said, there's no way. And he ticked off, you know, the nose out position. There's no need to leave the car in the accessory position to play tunes. And he said, and there's no way in the world, he said, that his brother would ever leave that truck unless he was forced to. He said he'd close and lock the truck at McDonald's when they went inside to get a hamburger.
I mean, it really looked like the truck had been set up. The way everything was positioned in it, the shoes in it, the underwear on the gear shift, his wallet up on the dashboard. These are not the way things would have been left. I mean, personally, I think they had gotten out of the truck and walked down to the beach area. At one point, there was a towel there that looked like it would have been like it was one of mine, but I really couldn't be sure, so I didn't say anything. But it's like they were down at the beach when this happened.
And that would have been the straight 100 or 200 yards paralleling the bridge that would have taken you right down to that sandy area?
Right.
What do you think of this question that's come up about whether or not they would have gone straight towards the water paralleling the James River Bridge, as opposed to this idea that they might have been forced to walk through the paths in the marsh to a place further along? Does any of that long walk through
I don't know. There's no way they could have walked through that long walk to where the bodies were found. They couldn't have done that. I mean, I guess if somebody has a gun to you, you probably could, but this was all marsh back then. This was, that was not a place where you would be. I think it was somebody on a boat. I think somebody was doing a drug deal or something on a boat, and they were there, and they stumbled across them or something. And then, I don't know if they shot them first or they made them get in the boat and go up to where that other little island is, made them get off, and then that's where it all happened.
So that puts them in a wrong place, wrong time kind of scenario.
Yeah, I really think that's what happened.
So when we talked to Jeanette in our last episode, she said that she does not think that this case is necessarily related to the others in the Colonial Parkway Murders series. Do you feel the same way?
I do feel the same way. I don't think it's related either. And the state police are kind of 50-50 on it too. Some of them don't feel that way at all.
So the way they see it and the way you see it, this is an independent event. This idea of the Colonial Parkway Murders, and I'm putting air quotes around that, may not apply here at all.
It may not, no.
So ultimately, what do you want to see happen with the case moving forward? You mentioned earlier it will be 34 years in September. Mm-hmm. What would you like to see happen to bring some answers and justice for Robin and David?
Well, I would like to see the killer caught, but I don't.
Sure.
I don't see that. I really don't see that unless somebody is already arrested, is on death row, and decides to admit to it, or maybe they die and they had told someone else that they did it. Other than that, I don't think it's going to be solved. And considering how much it's destroyed me and my family, it's just hard to believe somebody would deliberately do that.
Yeah, for us as well. Is that something that in any way, shape, or form you can make peace with?
I don't know. I don't think you can make peace. I think you just survive stuff. I don't think you get over it. I don't think you make peace with it. You just survive it. And that's just what I've been doing.
Well, we're glad of it. Judy, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk to us today.
You're welcome, Bill. And I appreciate all you do. And I sure hope we find justice one day.
Yeah.
Well, we're working on it.
Yeah. And Kristin, it was nice talking to you.
It was wonderful talking to you, too. I hope we get to meet in person at some point now that,
that would be
things
great.
seem to have calmed down around here. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Mind Over Murder. We'll see you next time. Mind Over Murder is a production of Absolute Zero and Another Dog Productions.
Our executive producers are Bill Thomas and Kristin Dilley.
Our logo art is by Pamela Arnois.
Our theme music is by Kevin MacLeod.
Mind Over Murder is distributed in partnership with Crawlspace Media.
You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
You can also follow our page on the Colonial Parkway Murders on Facebook.
And finally, you can follow Bill Thomas on Twitter at BillThomas56.
Thank you for listening to Mind Over Murder.